Long connected to myth and magic, the Druids are one of the world's great mysteries. But the little we know about these ancient people paints a very different picture to the one pop culture would have us believe. In this video, we will share the details that were they really the cloaked and hooded custodians of Stonehenge, or were they something else entirely? Historians uncover insight into Europe's long-lost Druids' power. Before we start the video, please subscribe to our channel and give our video a thumbs up. Without further delay, let's start the video. Early history. According to some, the Druidic tradition began during the Paleolithic era when early adherents used caves as the setting for rituals of rebirth, and the strange practices have been linked to monuments around the world from the Neolithic tomb at Newgrange, Ireland, to ancient paintings dubbed on the walls of caves across Spain and France. In reality, though the earliest written accounts of the Druids came many thousands of years later, in the 4th century BC, the earliest actual accounts emerge much later in the writings of ancient Greek scholars, and it took another 250 years before detailed descriptions of the Druids began to take shape around 50 BC. Germany, Belgium, and France. Kaiser marched west from Rome, but the Native Americans and the Druids resisted him. Kaiser's De Bello Gallico commentary was modernly translated. The Druids were members of Celtic society who conducted public and private sacrifices and interpreted all matters of religion, but their influence, he wrote, was not limited to the spiritual realm. If a crime has been committed, murder has been committed, or a dispute has arisen over an inheritance or boundaries, these same people decide how to settle at Caesar and decree rewards and punishments. Celtic Gaul had a legal system. The Druids had a hierarchical organization with a head nominated by violence or democratic voting. Human sacrifice. According to Caesar, the Druids believed in reincarnation, that souls do not die but flow from one to another, and, as the legends say, they were engaged in astronomy and cosmology, theorizing on how the natural world related to the realms of the gods. Crucially, Kaiser also wrote of human sacrifice, a rather grim aspect of the Druidic tradition that has been used as propaganda against them over the years. In his writings, the future emperor cited such rituals, claiming that they involved the burning of a criminal or wicked man. In fact, some historians have suggested that his descriptions of human sacrifice might have been part of an intentional campaign against the Druids by painting them as barbaric. Kaiser would have been able to justify his conquest in the eyes of the Roman people, and he might not have been the only one to fall out with the Celts and respond with gruesome tales of human sacrifice. For example, the Roman scribe Cornelius Tacitus wrote an account of a rebellion in Brittany. According to Tacitus, the Romans easily defeated the rogue Druids who had risen against the empire, but in the process they discovered relics that suggested grim sacrificial rites were taking place. But might the Romans have simply been seeking to portray the Druids in an unflattering light? After all, there is no solid evidence to support the theory that the Druids engaged in human sacrifice, and even though some archaeological discoveries, such as the 2,000-year-old Lindo Man, may show some signs of ritual abuse, historians are far from certain about the role of such practices in Celtic Britain. Towards the beginning of the 4th century AD, Emperor Constantine began to promote Christianity. Invaders crossed the English Channel, and the natives abandoned Christianity and reverted to their pagan ways. But missionaries brought Christianity back to Britain, and the beliefs of the Druids and pagans began to fade. In the 8th century, Ireland still had Druids, but they were now sorcerers and wise men rather than spiritual and legislative leaders. A revival. Druids are now seen as love potion makers and spellcasters, but Cunliffe explained that the mood is captured by an 8th century hymn that asks for God's protection from the spells of women blacksmiths and Druids. By the 19th century, the Druids had developed a formidable reputation as fierce warrior priests who had defended their homeland from Roman occupation. Even though this idea has since been dismissed by scholars, it remains an integral part of Britain's folk history. Meanwhile, authors and playwrights of the time began incorporating the legends into their work, But this revival wasn't limited to the passive interest of writers and scholars. It's claimed important rituals took place on this site, and those who follow modern religion still assert a sense of spiritual ownership over the monument. In 1905, the first mass initiation was held at Stonehenge, and from that point on, the monument found itself at the heart of the counterculture movement, attracting not just modern Druids but New Age travelers, hippies, and pagans of every tradition. Its alleged significance to the ancient Celts, though, remained at the heart of its appeal. Visitor numbers had soared, with tens of thousands of people flocking to Stonehenge to celebrate the summer solstice, and in response, the authorities attempted to restrict access to the site. Of course, the Neo-Druids and their associates were less than happy to be cut off from their place of worship, and violent confrontations ensued until several prominent Neo-Druids succeeded in securing access to Stonehenge on the grounds of religious freedom. And today the monument is open to the public. But most experts believe that their enthusiasm is somewhat misplaced because, around the same time that the Neo-Druids first began making pilgrimages to the ancient monument, archaeologists were unearthing evidence that cast doubt on the supposed connection. It was a great and potentially uncomfortable irony that modern Druids had arrived at Stonehenge just as archaeologists were evicting ancient Druids from it, as historian Ronald Hutton wrote in his 2009 book Blood and Mistletoe. Even though the religion predates the oldest documentary evidence, it appears implausible that it could have lasted that long without leaving more archaeological objects or cultural remnants. The Druids then were almost certainly not responsible for building Stonehenge, despite the beliefs of those who claim to follow the religion today. In fact, we know little about the customs and practices of the ancient Celtic faith, and most rituals claiming to be Druidic are little more than modern inventions. But if they were not the mysterious architects of Stonehenge as many believe today, then who were they? All of this was about this new find. Use the comments to tell us what you think about this finding. If you liked the video, click the like button and share with your friends about. Please subscribe to our channel and click on the bell button to get updates regularly. Thanks for coming to watch. See you all at the next video.